Hey team, and welcome back to this thing that we're doing together. This journey that we're going on a giant rotating rock through space. That is our existence. Hi, welcome back to this. Thanks for joining me once again. Today I wanted to do a bit more of a personal video. Wanted something that's maybe a bit too personal. So we're gonna see how this goes. We're gonna see how I feel while doing this. Cool. So as some of you may know, or may have ascertained from things that I have said in my videos, I have actually been diagnosed with bipolar mood disorder. That is not just my opinion, that's a doctor's opinion, although I don't necessarily think that self-diagnosis is wrong. I self-diagnosed myself with that when I was like 16. And I ended up being right, even though you don't walk out of the doctor's office with a certificate and like a little plaque that you'd be like, yay, I have this disease. Like, that's not how it works. A doctor's diagnosis is just like a professional opinion. It's not always correct. As you would know if you have been given antibiotics for a viral infection. That's not how that works, doctors, but they do it anyway. So it's not quite the same with mental health, but get on board with me here. So I have bipolar mood disorder, and that's something that I have been living with since I was a teenager and possibly preteen. It's kind of hard to tell with mental illness when they become more prevalent, because especially a mood disorder like mine where you have a lot of mood swings, because as a teenager that's quite normal and people tend to think that you're overreacting if you say, no, I'm mentally ill, or no, it's just teenage angst, no, you'll grow out of it. That happens a lot. So yeah, since I maybe 10 plus years, it's definitely 10 because I'm 28 now. It's quite a few years on that I've been living with this condition, dealing with it, surviving it. It depends on what you want to call it. For me, my personal vocabulary is just like living with it. I used to see it as sort of like that was the only thing that I had. My personality didn't matter, my interests didn't matter, because they were kind of marred by having bipolar mood disorder. Things that I was interested in and I did like, I suddenly wouldn't be interested in because I would go through a bout of depression. And the things that I did care about when I was manic, they were the only things in my life and there was nothing else. And when I realized that that's why I was having such strong mood swings, I kind of thought, well, I don't really care about anything. My hobbies aren't real hobbies. I only care about them when I'm manic. Therefore, they are a product of my mania and I don't actually like anything. So for a while, I disengaged from hobbies because of that. I felt like the only thing that I had in my life was my mental illness. I have changed that perception now. I think it's quite normal for people to feel that way when they're young. I have changed that perception now. I do certainly see it as a part of me, but it isn't an entirely all-encompassing part of me. And also for a while there I tried to separate it from myself, kind of give it a name and make it something else, sort of like a second personality. When I was younger, I kind of thought that if I distanced myself from it, I could deal with it in a better way, in a more objective way. Obviously that's not possible because it's inside my brain and it's who I am every single day of my life. So now I see it as a part of me, but in the way that the way I love The Simpsons is a part of me, and that I'm addicted to avocado is a part of me, just like my mental illness is a part of me. So what I wanted to do today was sort of, knowing all of those things, speak to maybe younger people who think they might have a mental illness or know that they have a mental illness but no one is believing them. And being at that point in your life where you feel like the struggle that you're going through is never ending. It's not like it's a tumor that can be cut out of you. It is a part of you forever. And knowing that is really hard because the struggle that you're going through feels like you can't win it. And what I want to say to those people, younger people who are living with mental illness, is that you don't need to win that battle. It's not a fight against anything, because the thing you would be fighting against is yourself. And that is where a lot of my self-hatred came from. And I think it's really important, or it was really important for me, and the language I was using to speak about it for myself was that you can't fight against something that is yourself without also learning to hate yourself. So if you haven't already thought of it that way, I encourage you to think about it that way, that hating your mental illness is hating yourself, and that is very destructive. And sometimes that feels not normal, but it feels safe because it's a pattern that you're in, and that is part of your brainwave. And it's been proven by scientists that the brainwaves that you have as teenagers, the neural pathways that you use become very worn and therefore become favorite paths in your neural brain. That was a word, that's a thing. And they become favored pathways for you. So I now have a problem with suicidal ideation because when I was a teenager, I thought about killing myself a lot. And now I don't want to die, I don't want to kill myself, but I think about it all the time because that's just like an old habit that my brain has. And if you're young and you're getting into the habit of hating yourself and thinking about yourself in a negative way, you will be stuck with those thoughts for longer than you want to be. And it will take a lot of work to stop yourself from thinking that way. So what I wanted to say to those people that are younger is that it's really tough work, and certainly being mentally ill is not a choice, but I think that recovery is a choice, and I think that you have to choose it early on. I don't think that I did. I don't think I chose to feel better and be better until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was definitely 24, 25 before I decided, hey, I don't want to live like this anymore. And it had been at least 10 years at that point. So choosing recovery now is really important. I think also the prevalence of the internet, the way that it works, the way that it's integrated into our lives now makes it so much easier to find resources for you to learn about your mental illness, feel better about yourself, talk to other people who have similar situations to you, because everybody's experience is very different. And certainly my experience with my family and being middle class is certainly made it easier for me to access things like therapy, and my mum had a similar mental illness, so knowing what she's going through, if you don't have that same situation, you don't have the same access to resources, you don't necessarily have as much information as I did. Even when I was younger and I couldn't put words on it, I understood it because I lived it with somebody else. And then becoming a teenager and growing into that mental illness, it became very clear to me that I was exhibiting similar patterns and behaviors. So if you don't have that at your disposal, it's very hard to understand what you're going through, but the internet is going to allow you to access other people to talk about what it is that you're going through. Yeah, I'm not that old. The internet was around when I was a teenager, but it was certainly something secret that you didn't talk about. I remember when Google didn't exist and you had to know the name of a website to go to that website. I remember a lot of the internet being something that you didn't talk about, and you were very anonymous on the internet when I was younger. So you might sometimes mention a little bit about your personal life, but for me, definitely, it was all about, I guess, fandoms, like actual fandoms that I was a part of. And then also, even if you were just on a website about history, like you would just talk about the thing that you were on that website to talk about. You wouldn't talk about yourself. Your username would not be anything to do with your personal name. And if it was shocking, like, oh my God, you're telling people what your real name is. You would hide behind an alias, and it was very much a thing to be not ashamed of, but like it was like you were a weirdo internet kid if you were on the internet when I was younger. And so it certainly wasn't a place where I could go and talk about those problems. I found forums that talked about slightly different problems. For a while I was hanging out on eating disorder forums because they spoke about feeling negative about yourself, and I felt negative about myself, but I didn't have an eating disorder. I was exhibiting other behaviors that reflected how negative I felt about myself, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same mental illness, but I just couldn't find anywhere on the internet to talk about what I felt and connect with people who understood what I was going through. So I think it's really important to use the resources at your disposal. Internet, I mean, Macca's has free Wi-Fi. You can get internet anywhere these days. So I think it's definitely not unreasonable that the types of people who might have access to this video would have access to resources on the internet about mental illness. Also, I think it's really important to say, like, it's when you hear campaigns like It Gets Better, even though that is definitely about LGBTQIA experiences, I don't think that that's necessarily correct. I don't think that it gets better. I think that you get better at dealing with things, and I certainly feel stronger now than I used to. And it's not about being happy. Happiness isn't something that I necessarily strive for, especially for me, my personal experience with bipolar mood disorder, which is two extremes. For me, I experience happiness as mania, which isn't happiness at all. It's actually can be quite scary sometimes, and I don't experience them often, but I experience delusions sometimes. Certainly a feeling of grandeur, overspending, those types of things. Completely disregarding consequences is a massive problem that I have with my mania. I think that because of that, because my experience with happiness is kind of negative of what I was told was happiness, because that's what people say when they talk about bipolar. Sometimes you're really sad and sometimes you're really happy. It's not happiness, it's mania, it's completely different. Firstly, that's a problem, we talk about it in the wrong way. And secondly, because that was what was put in my brain from when I was younger, I now don't really associate happiness as a positive thing, which is really messed up. And this is what I'm talking about, neural pathways and the way that they work. So I think it's important to realize that what you strive for when you have a mental illness or an ongoing chronic illness is a balance of the time and effort that you put into that illness that you have, and how often am I going to therapy, and am I going to therapy too often, and am I not living my life because I'm constantly worried about what's going on in my brain and where I'm at with my medications, and certainly giving that part of yourself credence when it deserves it, but not overly like putting energy into something that is going to start taking away from your life. Balance is very important to me, I think. And I've been thinking about doing this video for a few days now because I've been feeling better, and part of that's just a natural wave of my, bipolar mood disorder, and part of that is because I quit my job, which was very stressful, and I now have time to breathe, and I'm very privileged to have that opportunity. But I've been thinking about doing this video because for the past few weeks, I've still been a bit depressed sometimes, and I've still had manic episodes, and I'm very aware now of the signals, and when I'm feeling something, I'm like, oh, that's just part of the mania. I do feel that emotion, but maybe I feel it slightly less, and I'm not going to act on it in the way that I want to right now because I'm just going to regulate myself. Or same thing with depression. Yes, I feel angry or frustrated about this, and that's a valid emotion, but like the behaviors that I want to exhibit because of it are not necessarily healthy, so let's just pause, give it a day or two and see how I go. I've still had those mood swings, but a lot milder than I definitely have in the past, and I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm happy right now. I don't really have anything in my life at this point in time other than like these videos that I'm doing, which is why I'm doing so many right now. I don't have a job. I do have a few friends, but we don't see each other that often because we don't live super close to each other. It's all up in the air. And I have this feeling that when I was 16, I didn't even know that it was possible to feel the way I feel right now. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's a sense of calm, I guess. Like, I know that next week I'll feel manic. I know that the week after that I'll feel depressed. I know like that my mood swings are gonna roll on like they always do. But I also know that I'm gonna be able to handle them and be able to separate my feelings from my behaviors, which is also quite important. So I guess that's the point of this. It's long and it doesn't make any sense, and I've just rambled about like 17 different things. I clearly thought about this beforehand, but I didn't like write dot points because I didn't want it to feel really structured and like I was lecturing people on like how to get better from mental illness, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a therapist, I'm nothing. I just have my personal experience, and that's in no way a universal experience, but I think sharing them allows us to identify with each other and identify things within ourselves that maybe we didn't realize. And I'm just trying to grow and learn and change as a human, guys. I'm just trying to do better, and I want you to do better, whatever that means for you. And I guess what I'm trying to say is it's gonna be okay, and not because your situation necessarily changes or your mental illness just goes away, but because you become a better person. But you have to choose that. You have to choose to become the better person so that in the future your life can be different and better, because otherwise you'll never grow and learn and change. So that's my message, I guess. I hope that that is helpful or positive to somebody. I don't know. If it was, let me know, because I think it's silly for people to come on YouTube and be like, oh, I don't care about views, or I don't care about comments. Like, everyone who's on here is doing it for a reason. I think that this is my reason, because I want to, like, I don't want to tell my story for me. I want to tell my story so other people can hear it and be like, oh, shit happens sometimes, but it's okay. Like, she's alive and that's cool. And yeah, just share this with someone who needs it right now. I don't know if you will notice that they need it. Just share it with someone who needs it, because I needed this. I needed to know it was going to be okay. Because there were times in my life where I was like really, really sure that it wasn't worth it to keep going. And it is worth it to keep going. And I hope it didn't sound negative for me to say happiness isn't something that you should strive for, because you should. You should strive for a balance between happiness and the rest of the shit in life that you aren't going to be able to avoid. So I hope this was positive for someone, and just all the usual things that we say, I guess. Share it, comment, like, subscribe, just do whatever you want. Just go be happy. Just go be better and have good lives, and good luck with everything, I guess. Alrighty. Whew. That's over now. That's over now. We're done. It's over. The emotions are back in the box. We've closed it. They're not coming out for a while now. Sorry about all of that stuff. Anyway,